Hey, what's going on guys? The Broken Machine here. Today I've got some tips on how to stop dying so much in Battlefield 1. Obviously this is a massive topic, so we're going to stick to the basics for today. By far one of the biggest mistakes players make that leads to dying so much is sprinting too often. If you're sprinting all over the place, you'll likely run into a bunch of enemies waiting for you, into an enemy spawn, or someone who's behind an object and are difficult to kill. So try to avoid sprinting as much as possible. If you do wish to run somewhere, look around before you do and use cover along the way. Also, I see a lot of players running around corners, exposing their sides to the enemy and being spotted first. Unless you know the area, try to stop the sprinting and instead move side to side while aiming down your sight. You'll likely see your opponent first and get the drop on them. By moving to the side instead of sprinting around a corner, essentially you are limiting the angles of exposure. In this situation, for example, by standing here, you are exposed to 3 different areas where enemies could see you. By attacking from the side, you limit the angles of exposure and are less likely to be seen. Try to keep this technique in mind when moving around the map. To add to that, always use cover as much as possible. Cover can be anything. Walls, buildings, hills, trees, absolutely anything. Check out my video from yesterday where I go on a 36 kill streak. In that, I use stairs, pillars, and even beds as cover. It doesn't have to be a solid object. Use anything and everything to your advantage. Also, try to think about your movement. Standing still gives you an accuracy bonus that is especially helpful at longer ranges. But up close and personal, you don't need to be stood still all the time. Try spamming left and right while in a gunfight. Crouch bounce in close quarters as well. That's where you bounce up and down with the analog sticks. This is much easier to do on PC. One of my favourite techniques is the slide. I use this all the time, it's incredibly effective in CQC. My technique is pretty simple. Sprint and tap crouch, drop down a little, then quickly press it again and proceed to sprint. Also, flank as much as possible. Flanking is where you attack your enemies from the sides. So as you're moving around the map, instead of attacking each flank directly, try and approach them from the sides and back as well if you can. You'll also be limiting your angles of exposure as well. When it comes to capping flags, don't sit right in the middle. Avoid capping on the enemy side of the map and be ready for enemies to spawn in. Also remember, you don't have to cap every flag on the first attempt. It's okay to back off, find a better position, retreat if there's too many enemies. Same goes for gunfights too. You don't have to engage with every enemy you get into a gunfight with or see across the map. And to add to that, stop chasing targets. Do this to me and I'll just pre-fire and take you out with little difficulty. If you do chase your targets, you'll often run into an enemy who is likely ready for you or into a bunch of enemies, so avoid chasing as much as possible. I will cover gunfights and winning battles in a future video, but for now, a good rule to follow is, if your opponent is moving, you should be moving. If your opponent is stood still, or appears to be aiming at you, find a better position, readjust, and then engage again. Engaging with a player who is already aiming at you is usually not a good idea. Oh, and also, don't be afraid to hip fire as well. This is a mistake that I commonly make. I'm always aiming down sight all the time. But I've noticed, as I've been hit firing more, it's actually really effective in BF1. One last tip for today. This has been pretty basic for today, but this last tip, I think it will really help out you guys. My advice is, as you're moving around the battlefield, try and let the battles in front of you unfold. Don't be that person who just quickly reacts, quickly starts firing, and tries to get in there and be all aggressive. Try to let things unfold and see what kind of pieces your enemies have and then see what kind of moves you can play. Often my best plays, the ones where I take the objectives, the ones where I keep my kill streaks going, are when I kind of let the enemy just kind of do their thing and I try and adjust around them. You know, if you're constantly pushing into the enemy, someone's going to outplay you. That's just the way it is. And that is all I've got for you guys today. There are many ways of reducing your deaths, of course, but the key things to keep in mind are stop sprinting, use cover and movement to your advantage, and think before you engage. I do hope these tips help those of you looking to improve. If you missed yesterday's video on Fort de Vaux, please check that out and drop a like on this video too if you found it helpful. I'll see you guys soon. Take it easy. Thanks for checking out this video. Catch you later.
In Ordnung. Aussteigen.
We have taken objective butter.